when composers make music, oftentimes they have ideas in their minds, and there is sort of some types of formula that goes into it, whether it's figuring out form, like an A-B or an A-B-A kind of format, which as we study music longer, we'll get more comfortable with those and see that more often. But right now, they're introducing the idea of the question and answer, so that when you're thinking about melodies, oftentimes melodies are formulated by using some of the same material that you have. So think of it as two parts of a sentence, perhaps. The first part of the sentence might have a comma, and then we decide, do we want the second part of the sentence to sound the same at the beginning, or do we want it to sound totally different? So, for instance, if we're looking at the theory book where it says questions and answers, and if you would push pause and find that page in your book, it should be near the end of the book. And then when you're ready, turn it back on and I'll keep going. So on the questions and answer page, we have the musical question is first, and then the musical answer, and you'll notice that they are broken up, looks like, into three or four measure phrases. And then there's a line between them, so you can see there are going to be three that we're going to be dealing with when we work on this exercise. Now, the first kind of musical question is what we would call a parallel question, because what happens is when we give the answer, it's going to sound a lot like the question at the beginning, only it's going to change a little bit of something at the end. Listen to this first one. So we hear, here is a question for you. The answer is going to start off in the same way, but notice it'll do something different at the end. And this kind we call a parallel answer because it sounds a lot like the first one. Our second example there, so you could circle where it says musical answer, circle that one is parallel, because the beginnings of each of the phrases have that. So the first one again sounds like, and then the answer goes. Okay? Now let's look at that second one. This will give us an example of a contrasting one. So our melody, our musical question begins like this. Our answer sounds like this. So notice when we first started our question, we're stepping down. When we started our answer, we're skipping up and then back down, so they sound different. And this would be considered a contrasting answer instead of a parallel answer. So in this one you can circle contrasting. Now this last line, I'm going to let you try to figure out which one it would be. Does it sound like it's parallel or does it sound like it's contrasting? Here is your question. And here's your answer. What do you think? Did they sound enough alike that we could call them parallel, or should we call them contrasting? Let me play it one more time. And the answer? What do you think? Parallel or contrasting? That would be an example of a parallel answer, because they both start with that stepping little idea. Now, at the bottom of this page, you have number 1, number 2, and number 3, just underneath where the picture of the ear is. And what we're going to do is I'm going to play a couple of them for you, and I want you to listen and see, does it sound like they are parallel or contrasting? If it's parallel, you're going to circle the word parallel. If it's contrasting, you're going to circle the word contrasting. All right, so here's your first one. What do you think? Did it sound like it was parallel or contrasting? If you need to rewind it, do it again, because I made up the second part, so I'm not sure if I'll play it the same way again. I would call that a parallel because I did this at the beginning of each of the phrases, but then the last one I changed the ending a little bit. Let's try another one. This will be number 2. Again, parallel or contrasting. All right, what do you think? If you need to rewind it a little bit and listen again, you may. So number 2, the second one I did was contrasting. Did you notice how I did something totally different? It was kind of going back and forth between this, and then I did something a little bit like the first one. So number 2 would be contrasting. And then number 3. Number 3 is in a minor tonality. What do you think of that one? Rewind if you need to. That one was also contrasting. I think it's easy to figure out the parallel ones, but it's not quite as easy to do the contrasting ones. So that's why I decided to do a couple of extra contrasting so that you could kind of hear the difference and try to figure out if you could tell they were totally different at the beginning of the phrase. So that should hopefully finish that page of questions and answers. And if you have any questions and answers about musical questions and answers, make sure you ask me at the next lesson.